The night everything felt different began with silence, the kind that presses against the walls and makes even a large house in Chicago feel small. Emily pushed the front door open with her shoulder, her purse slipping from her arm, her body aching from a 12-hour shift at the hospital. Snow dusted the porch behind her, and the cold followed her inside, but the living room was warm and dim, lit only by a lamp near the couch. Daniel was already home. That alone felt unusual. He used to greet her with a smile, sometimes a kiss on her forehead, sometimes a joke about her saving the world one patient at a time. Lately, he barely looked up from his laptop. But tonight, he stood when she entered. "You look exhausted," he said, his voice softer than it had been in weeks. She paused, searching his face for something familiar. His eyes were gentle, but distant, like he was acting from memory instead of feeling. She forced a small smile and slipped off her coat. The house smelled like the pasta he had cooked, but the table was already cleared. He must have eaten alone. That small detail sat heavy in her chest. "Sit down," he said, gesturing toward the couch. "Let me help." She hesitated. Help had not been part of their routine for a long time. They had become two people living side by side, sharing space but not thoughts. Still, her back hurt, and she was too tired to argue. She sat at the edge of the couch, and he moved behind her. When his hands touched her shoulders, she stiffened without meaning to. His palms were warm, steady, careful as they pressed into the tight muscles near her neck. For a second, her eyes closed. She remembered another night years ago in their tiny New York apartment, when they were young and broke and in love, when he used to rub her shoulders after long study sessions and tell her she would be the best nurse in the city. Back then, his touch felt alive. Now, it felt measured. Thoughtful, but distant. He worked slowly down her back, and she focused on the rhythm of his breathing. It wasn't synced with hers anymore. They used to breathe together without trying. Now there was a gap, small but clear. "Is this okay?" he asked. The question surprised her. He used to know without asking. "Yeah," she replied quietly. The word echoed between them. The room felt too quiet. No music, no television, no laughter. Just his hands moving and the ticking clock on the wall. Emily opened her eyes and looked ahead at the dark window. Her reflection stared back. She looked tired. There were faint lines near her eyes, strands of silver in her brown hair. Life had changed her. But she had believed love would grow deeper with time, not thinner. She tried to lean into the comfort of the moment, but something inside her wouldn't relax. His hands were there, but his attention felt elsewhere. She could sense it. The way he paused too long. The way his movements felt almost distracted. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't rough. It was simply disconnected. She turned her head slightly and caught his reflection in the mirror across the room. He wasn't looking at her shoulders or her face. He was staring forward, lost in thought. His jaw was tight. His eyes looked far away. That look hit her harder than any argument could have. Because it wasn't anger she saw. It was absence. "How was work?" he asked suddenly, like he remembered he was supposed to. She almost laughed at how formal it sounded. "Busy," she answered. She wanted to say more. She wanted to tell him about the elderly patient who held her hand, about the young mother who cried after good news, about how drained she felt carrying everyone else's pain. But the words stayed inside. He nodded but didn't ask anything else. His thumbs pressed into her lower back. The gesture should have felt caring. Instead, it felt like a performance, like he was trying to fix something he hadn't named. She remembered the past few weeks clearly now, the late nights at the office, the sudden need for privacy with his phone, the way he smiled at messages. But turned the screen away. She had told herself she was imagining things. Marriage has seasons, she had thought. Stress comes and goes. But sitting there on the couch, feeling his hands move without warmth, she knew this was not just stress. Something had shifted between them. Something invisible but heavy. "Daniel," she said softly. Her voice surprised even her. He stopped for a second. "Yeah?" She wanted to ask the question burning in her chest. "Are you still here with me? Are we okay? Do you still see me?" But fear held her back. Fear of hearing an answer she wasn't ready for. "Nothing," she whispered. "It's fine." He resumed the massage, but the moment had changed. The distance felt wider now. She realized that love doesn't disappear in one loud crash. It fades quietly, in small missed conversations, in distracted touches, in empty spaces where laughter used to live. When he finally stepped back and said, "Feel better," she nodded, even though her heart felt heavier than before. "Thanks," she said, standing up. Their eyes met briefly. There was history there. Years of shared memories, holidays in Toronto with her sister, summer road trips to California, the day their son left for college. All of it lived between them. But tonight, something else lived there too, uncertainty. He reached as if to hug her, then hesitated. That hesitation felt louder than words. She walked toward the kitchen, pretending to check her phone. He stayed behind on the couch. The space between them stretched across the room, across 15 years of marriage. And in that quiet Chicago house, with snow falling softly outside, Emily felt it clearly for the first time. His hands had touched her back, but his heart had not. And that was the moment she understood that something was breaking, slowly, silently, like ice forming over deep water. The truth did not arrive with shouting or slammed doors. It came quietly on a gray Thursday afternoon when the house felt too still. Emily had the day off from the hospital, and for the first time in weeks she allowed herself to sleep in, hoping rest would calm the strange feeling growing inside her since that night on the couch. Daniel was working from home, moving between calls in his small office upstairs. The sound of his voice drifted down the hallway, professional, calm, distant. Around noon he rushed downstairs, distracted, grabbing his coat because he had forgotten about a lunch meeting downtown. "I'll be back in 2 hours," he said quickly, barely meeting her eyes before heading out into the cold Chicago wind. The front door shut, and silence filled the house again. Emily began clearing the kitchen counter, stacking mail, wiping small crumbs from breakfast. That was when she saw his phone lying near the fruit bowl. Daniel never forgot his phone. Not lately. It had become almost attached to his hand. She stared at it for a long moment, her heart beating faster without knowing why. She told herself to leave it alone. Trust matters, she thought. Marriage needs faith. But faith had been shaken, and she could not ignore the tremor any longer. As if on cue, the screen lit up with a soft buzz. A message preview appeared before she could look away. "I missed last night already. Red heart, Olivia." The air left her lungs. She read it once, then again, hoping the name would change, hoping she misunderstood. Olivia. Not a cousin. Not a client he had mentioned. Not anyone she knew. Her fingers felt cold as she picked up the phone. She stood frozen in the middle of the kitchen, staring at the glowing words that seemed to burn into her eyes. Last night. He had told her he was working late. The memory hit her hard. She had eaten dinner alone, texting him to drive safely. Slowly, like someone walking into deep water, she unlocked the phone. He had not changed the passcode, he never thought she would look. The message thread opened instantly. There were weeks of texts. Short at first. Friendly. Then warmer. Jokes only two people share when they are building something private. You make long days better. Can't wait to see you again. I haven't felt this way in years. Each line felt like a small crack forming inside her chest. There were no graphic words, nothing loud or crude. That almost made it worse. It was emotional. Intimate. Soft. The kind of connection that used to belong to her. She scrolled up further. Photos of coffee cups at a downtown cafe. A picture of Lake Michigan at sunset. Wish you were here, Olivia had written. Emily's vision blurred, but she kept reading, as if pain required proof. One message from Daniel stopped her breath completely. Being with you feels easy. Easy. 15 years of marriage were not easy. They were work. They were compromise, sacrifice, shared bills, raising a son, caring for aging parents. Easy was a word for something new, something untouched by responsibility. Her hands trembled, but she forced herself to keep standing. She needed clarity, not denial. The timeline became clear quickly. The messages had started 3 months ago. Around the same time he began coming home late. Around the same time his laughter grew rare. Around the same time he stopped reaching for her at night. The puzzle pieces slid into place without mercy. A car door slammed outside. Emily looked up sharply. He was back too soon. Panic rushed through her, but it wasn't panic about being caught looking at his phone. It was panic about facing him with this new knowledge burning inside her. She placed the phone carefully on the dining table and sat down, folding her hands to stop them from shaking. The front door opened, cold air sweeping in with him. Meeting got cancelled, Daniel called out. He stepped into the kitchen and stopped when he saw her sitting there. Something in her face must have told him everything. His eyes moved slowly to the phone on the table. Silence fell heavy between them. Emily, he began, but the words sounded weak. She did not yell. She did not cry. Her voice came out steady, which surprised them both. Who is Olivia? She asked. The question hung in the air like fragile glass. He looked down at the floor instead of at her. That was answer enough. It's not what you think, he said automatically, but even he seemed unsure of the sentence. She pushed the phone gently toward him. Then tell me what it is. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing once across the kitchen. He looked smaller somehow, less certain than the man she had built a life with. It started as nothing, he said. Just talking. She works in my department. Emily listened without interrupting. Her heart pounded so loud she could hear it in her ears. I didn't plan it, he continued. It just happened. Those words felt like another betrayal. Things do not just happen. Choices happen. Messages happen. Meetings happen. She swallowed hard. Did you think about me? She asked quietly. He didn't answer right away. That pause hurt more than the confession. Tears finally filled her eyes, but they did not fall. She refused to break in front of him. How long? She asked. 3 months, he admitted. The number echoed in the room. 3 months of lies. 3 months of distance. 3 months of her doubting herself instead of doubting him. Do you love her? The question came out softer than she intended. Daniel looked at her then, truly looked at her, and for a moment she saw fear in his eyes. I don't know, he said honestly. That honesty cut deeper than any denial. Emily stood slowly. Her legs felt weak, but her voice stayed calm. "I trusted you," she said. Not angrily. Not dramatically. Just truth. The house that once felt warm now felt unfamiliar, like she was standing in someone else's life. Daniel stepped toward her as if to explain more, but she held up her hand. "I need space," she whispered. He stopped immediately. For the first time since she found the message, he seemed to understand the weight of what he had done. Emily walked past him and up the stairs, each step heavy but steady. She entered their bedroom and closed the door softly behind her. The room looked the same, photos on the dresser, neatly folded blankets, the soft lamp glow, but everything felt altered. She sat on the edge of the bed and finally let the tears fall. Not loud sobs. Just quiet grief. The kind that comes when something trusted breaks. Downstairs, she could hear him moving, pacing, maybe realizing that secrets always surface. Emily wiped her cheeks and stared at the wall. The truth had arrived quietly, but it had changed everything. And as she sat alone in that bedroom, she knew one thing clearly: their marriage would never return to the way it was before that single message lit up the screen. The days after the truth came out moved fast but felt heavy, as if time refused to slow down, yet her heart could not keep up. Emily returned to work at the hospital in Chicago with a calm face and steady hands, but inside she was unraveling. She greeted patients, checked charts, smiled at coworkers, and carried on like nothing had changed, yet every quiet second pulled her back to Daniel's confession. 3 months. The number echoed in her mind while she walked through white hospital halls. At home, the air between them felt tight. They spoke only about simple things: groceries, bills, their son Ethan's college classes in Boston. No one mentioned Olivia again, but her name lived silently in every room. Daniel tried to act normal, asking if Emily needed anything, offering to cook dinner, hovering near her as if afraid she would disappear. She noticed his effort, but effort did not erase betrayal. One evening she stood in front of the bathroom mirror, studying her reflection under bright light. She looked tired, yes, but she also saw strength in her eyes. 15 years of marriage had shaped her. She had supported Daniel when he lost his first job. She had stayed awake through nights when their son had a fever. She had chosen loyalty every single day. Yet now she questioned everything. Was she too busy? Too focused on work? Too comfortable? The questions came quickly, but deep down she knew the truth was simpler. She had not failed. He had chosen differently. That realization both hurt and empowered her. Downstairs, Daniel was on the phone ending something quietly. She heard only pieces of the conversation: "This can't continue," and "I need to fix my marriage." The words reached her ears, but she did not feel relief. Ending it now did not erase what had already happened. Later that night he knocked softly on the bedroom door before entering, something he never used to do. "I told her it's over," he said. Emily sat on the bed reading but did not look up right away. "Okay," she answered calmly. He stood there waiting for a reaction, maybe forgiveness, maybe anger. She gave him neither. "I started therapy," he added quickly. "I know I messed up. I don't want to lose you." She finally lifted her eyes to meet his. For the first time she saw not distance, but fear. Real fear of consequences. "You already lost something," she said quietly. "You lost the version of me who trusted without question." The words settled heavily between them. He sat down on the chair across the room, running his hands together nervously. "It wasn't about her being better," he said. "I felt stuck. I didn't know how to talk to you anymore." Emily felt a spark of anger rise. "You didn't try," she replied. "You looked for escape instead of conversation." He had no answer for that. Silence filled the room again, but this time it felt honest, not distant. The next week moved in small shifts. Daniel deleted social media, shared his phone password openly, checked in during the day. He tried to rebuild brick by brick. Emily watched carefully. She appreciated the effort, yet her heart remained guarded. Trust, she realized, was not a switch you turn back on. It was glass once shattered. One Saturday she drove alone to the lakefront, parking near Lake Michigan as cold wind brushed against her coat. She walked along the water, thinking about her life not just as a wife, but as a woman. She remembered who she was before marriage, confident, ambitious, hopeful. Somewhere along the way, she had tied her identity too tightly to being needed. Now she felt something new growing inside her, something steady and strong. She deserved honesty. She deserved respect. When she returned home that evening, Daniel was waiting in the kitchen. He looked tired but sincere. "I'll do whatever it takes," he said. "Counseling. Time. Space. I just want a chance." She studied him carefully. He looked like the man she once fell in love with, but also like someone she did not fully know anymore. "I'm not promising anything," she answered. "I'm deciding what's right for me." That sentence shifted the balance between them. For the first time, she was not reacting to his choices. She was making her own. In the days that followed, they attended their first therapy session together. It was uncomfortable. They spoke about communication, loneliness, unmet expectations. Daniel admitted he had been afraid of growing older, afraid of feeling ordinary. Olivia had made him feel exciting again, but he now understood that excitement built on secrecy collapses quickly. Emily listened carefully, not to excuse him, but to understand the weakness that led to betrayal. Slowly, she realized something important. His cheating was not proof that she was lacking. It was proof that he had been running from his own fears. That clarity lifted a weight from her shoulders. She stopped comparing herself to someone younger. She stopped blaming her busy schedule. Instead, she focused on her own healing. She began going to the gym again, meeting her sister in Toronto for weekend visits, reconnecting with friends she had neglected. With each step, she felt stronger. Daniel noticed the change too. One evening as they sat across from each other at dinner, he said softly, "You seem different." She nodded. "I am." There was no anger in her tone, only certainty. "I won't stay in a marriage where I feel second," she added. He swallowed hard, understanding the seriousness of her words. For the first time, he realized reconciliation was not guaranteed. It was earned. That night, as they prepared for bed, he reached gently for her hand. She let him hold it for a moment, feeling the warmth but also the distance that still existed. Her heart was no longer soft and unquestioning. It had hardened, protected itself like stone after impact. But even stone can crack under the right conditions. As she lay awake staring at the ceiling, she understood something clearly: whether this marriage survived would depend not on apologies, but on change. Real change. And for the first time since discovering the messages, she felt a small sense of control return. The woman in the mirror was not broken. She was rebuilding. The final turning point came on a cold evening in early spring when the city lights of Chicago shimmered against the dark sky and Emily stood alone in the living room, holding a decision that would shape the rest of her life. Weeks had passed since therapy began, since Daniel ended things with Olivia, since long talks filled their nights instead of silence. Progress had been made, but healing was not smooth. Some mornings Emily woke up calm, almost hopeful. Other mornings she felt the sting all over again, as if the message on his phone had just appeared. Trust was growing back slowly, but it was fragile, like thin ice over deep water. That evening they were scheduled to attend a charity gala hosted by the hospital, an event Emily had helped organize for months. Daniel had insisted on going with her, saying it was time to stand beside her publicly again, not hide behind guilt. As they dressed in separate rooms, the air carried nervous energy. Emily wore a simple black dress, elegant but not flashy, and when she looked in the mirror she did not see a betrayed wife. She saw a strong woman who had survived heartbreak without losing her dignity. Downstairs, Daniel adjusted his tie, glancing at her with an expression that held both admiration and regret. "You look beautiful," he said quietly. She thanked him, but the words did not carry the same power they once did. At the event, soft music played and conversations floated through the large ballroom. Colleagues greeted Emily warmly, praising her work, unaware of the storm she had been navigating at home. Daniel stayed close, introducing her proudly, keeping his hand lightly at her back as if reminding himself where he belonged. For a moment, things almost felt normal. Then Emily saw her. Across the room, near the balcony doors, stood Olivia. She was younger, poised, wearing a blue dress that caught the light. Their eyes met unexpectedly. Time slowed. Emily had imagined this moment in anger before, but standing there she felt something different, clarity. Olivia looked nervous, not confident. She looked like someone who had stepped into a story that was never fully hers. Daniel followed Emily's gaze and froze. His body stiffened beside her. "I didn't know she would be here," he whispered. Emily believed him. She could see the tension in his jaw, the discomfort in his eyes. For a brief second, the old pain flared inside her, but it did not control her. She took a slow breath and made a choice. Instead of walking away, instead of creating a scene, she straightened her shoulders and walked forward. Olivia noticed her approaching and quickly stepped aside from her group. Up close, she looked even younger than Emily remembered from the photo on the phone. "Hi," Olivia said softly, clearly unsure. Emily's voice remained calm. "Good evening." There was no sarcasm, no anger. Just steady composure. For a few seconds they stood facing each other, two women connected by one man's mistake. "I hope you're well," Olivia added awkwardly. Emily nodded once. "I am working on it." That was all she said. She did not blame her. She did not insult her. She simply acknowledged reality. Daniel joined them, looking deeply uncomfortable. "We should head back," he said quietly to Emily. She agreed, and together they walked away. That simple act, him choosing to walk beside his wife in front of everyone, carried more meaning than any apology spoken in private. Later that night, back at home, the weight of the evening settled in. Emily removed her earrings slowly while Daniel stood near the doorway, unsure whether to speak. Finally, he did. "Seeing you tonight," he said, "I realized how close I came to losing everything." His voice was steady but emotional. Emily turned to face him. "You didn't almost lose everything," she replied. "You did lose something. You lost who we were before." He nodded, accepting the truth. "But I don't want to lose who we can become," he said. The sentence hung in the room. Emily walked past him toward the window, looking out at the quiet street. Snow had melted, and early signs of spring were beginning to show. Change was possible. Growth was possible. But only if both people committed fully. "I'm not staying because I'm afraid to leave," she said finally. "I'm staying because I see effort. Real effort. But if that stops, I will choose myself." Daniel stepped closer, not touching her yet. "It won't stop," he promised. She believed he meant it. And for the first time in months, she felt something soften inside her, not blind trust, not naive hope, but cautious belief. They stood side by side in silence, not perfect, not fully healed, but honest. In the weeks that followed, they continued therapy, rebuilt communication, and created new habits: weekly date nights, open conversations, shared responsibilities. The past did not disappear, but it stopped controlling every moment. Emily no longer felt like a victim of his choices. She felt like a partner deciding whether to rebuild. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the Chicago skyline in warm colors, Daniel reached for her hand again. This time she let him hold it longer. The grip was gentle, steady, present. "Thank you for giving me a chance," he said. She looked at him carefully. "I didn't give you a chance," she replied. "We are building a new one." Her heart was no longer stone. It had cracked, yes, but through those cracks light had entered. The betrayal had changed them both, but it had also forced honesty that had been missing for years. Whether their marriage would last forever remained unknown, but what mattered now was that it was real, not comfortable and distant, not easy and distracted, but chosen every day with awareness. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, Emily realized something powerful: forgiveness is not forgetting, and love after betrayal is not weakness. It is strength measured in patience, boundaries, and truth. Whatever the future held, she knew one thing clearly: she would never abandon herself again.